It was supposed to be a romantic getaway, just us, the ocean breeze, and the whisper of the waves crashing against the rocks. But that old lighthouse, standing defiantly against the stormy sky, held a secret. By the time we realized the truth, it was too late. If you ever visit the Haven's Edge Lighthouse, don't go to the top. It all started with a spontaneous road trip. My partner, Emily, had always wanted to visit the Haven's Edge Lighthouse, a historic beacon perched on jagged cliffs overlooking the ocean. Rumor had it the lighthouse was haunted, but we dismissed the tales as mere folklore, a story to keep kids from wandering too close to the cliffs. We arrived just as the sun began to set, casting an amber glow over the weathered stones. The lighthouse keeper, an elderly man with a gaunt face and piercing eyes, greeted us at the entrance. His voice was hoarse, as though he hadn't used it much in years. "Be careful in there," he warned, holding the door open. "Some things are better left undisturbed." We exchanged amused glances, chalking his words up to local superstition. Little did we know, he wasn't exaggerating. The interior of the lighthouse was a time capsule, untouched by modernity. Wooden stairs creaked under our feet as we ascended, and the salty air carried an odd metallic tang. We decided to document the visit, pulling out our camera to record the spiral staircase, the antique oil lamps, and the eerie sound of the wind howling through the cracks in the stone. As we reached the midway point, Emily paused. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her brow furrowed. I stopped to listen, but all I could hear was the wind. "Probably just the old building settling," I replied, trying to sound convincing, but she wasn't convinced. Neither was I when I replayed the footage we'd just taken. In the background, faint footsteps echoed sound we hadn't heard during our climb. We continued upward, unease settling over us like a thick fog. The air grew colder the higher we climbed, and the shadows cast by our flashlight seemed to dance along the walls. Reaching the observation deck, we were greeted by a breathtaking view of the ocean under a moonlit sky. But our awe quickly turned to dread when Emily gasped and pointed at the camera's viewfinder. "There's someone behind you," she whispered, her voice trembling. I spun around, but the deck was empty. Confused, I looked back at the camera. In the playback, a man in a sailor's uniform stood just feet away, his face pale and his eyes hollow. He was there, but he wasn't. The lights inside the lighthouse flickered as we descended, urgency propelling us forward. Emily clutched my arm, her breathing shallow. "Let's get out of here," she said, her voice barely audible, but the lighthouse seemed alive, the walls groaning and the wind howling like a banshee. We heard footsteps again, this time faster, as though someone or something was chasing us. The sound grew louder, closer, until we reached the bottom. The door slammed shut before we could escape. Trapped in the lighthouse, we scrambled for the door, but it wouldn't budge. Shadows moved along the walls, forming the silhouette of the sailor. His voice echoed around us, low and mournful, carrying words we couldn't understand. The temperature plummeted, and the room felt smaller, as if the walls were closing in. Emily screamed as the sailor appeared directly in front of us, his face twisted in anguish. He reached out, and the cold touch of his hand sent a jolt of terror through me. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice like the rustling of dead leaves. When we woke, we were outside on the rocky shore, the lighthouse looming above us, its light eerily still. The keeper was gone, as if he had never existed. We never spoke about what happened that night, but the footage remained. Every time we watched it, new details emerged, the sailor's whispers growing clearer, the shadows more defined. If you're ever tempted to visit the Haven's Edge Lighthouse, think twice, because once you enter, it doesn't let you leave the same. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, you won't want to miss our story about the tunnel system, lost in the underground. Click here to explore the eerie depths of another haunting mystery. But be warned, some stories are better left untold.